All right, today we're cracking open the armory on one of the longest and, frankly, weirdest conflicts you could ever imagine, the Great War. You see, when a war involves both heaven and hell as active participants, the weapons, well, they go way beyond simple bullets and bombs.
Okay, so first things first. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale we're dealing with, you've got to understand the timeline. This isn't a war of years, or even decades. No. This war has been raging for 8 centuries. That's 800 years of non-stop innovation in the science of killing, all driven by two very, very different benefactors.
So in this explainer, we're going to trace that 800-year arms race. We'll kick things off with the absolute basics, the very steel of heaven and hell. Then we'll scale way up to the artillery of the apocalypse, dive into the brutal reality of hand-to-hand combat, see what the average soldier is carrying, and then wrap up by looking at the incredibly high cost of wielding this kind of ultimate power.
Everything in this war, and I mean everything, starts with the metal. The entire technological, and you could even say philosophical conflict, is literally forged into the alloys used for armor and weapons. You've got two sides, each drawing from a completely opposite source of power.
And right here, this is the core of the whole arms race. On one side, you have the Holy See's divine light steel. It's actually imbued with light, which makes it harder and more malleable than pretty much anything else. A suit of this stuff can literally stop a hail of bullets, but man, the cost to produce it is just astronomical. Then, you've got the other side. The Heretics use hellish metals, straight from Tartarus. And sure, they're stronger than normal steel, but they come with a terrible, terrible price. Wielding a hell-forged weapon or wearing infernal armor actually burns both your body and your soul, leaving these festering wounds that never, ever heal.
So this arms race in materials, it doesn't just stop with personal armor. Oh no, it scales up from there into these truly colossal machines that just dominate the landscape. We're not just talking about cannons here. These things are titanic engines of destruction that have literally created a hellscape on Earth, scarring every single inch of no man's land.
In the huge foundries of New Antioch, the faithful are building artillery pieces that are, frankly, mind-boggling in size. We're talking about cannons that are over 300 feet long. That is the length of a football field, all of it dedicated to firing a single, massive shell. But as insane as that is, the Heretics, drawing from the forges of hell itself, have created something even more monstrous. Get this, their largest known weapon, the dreaded mouth of hell, measures a staggering 666 feet in length. That is more than double the size of its divine counterpart.
And this table really just highlights the ridiculous escalation. The faithful supergun, 300 feet long. The Heretics, 666 feet. But the number that should really shock you is the caliber of the mouth of hell, 1,666 millimeters. Just to put that into perspective for you, the biggest naval guns in World War II were around 460 millimeters. This isn't a weapon for destroying a building, it's a weapon for just erasing a whole section of the map.
Now, here's where things get kind of paradoxical. You'd think, right, with bulletproof armor and continent-shattering artillery, most of the fighting would happen at a distance. But it's actually the exact opposite. Because the armor is so effective, close-quarters combat has become way more frequent and a whole lot more brutal.
So what do you use when a bullet just won't cut it? Well, you go back to basics. Soldiers storming trenches are relying on things like trench clubs, polearms, and these massive lead-tipped great maces. It's this strange and horrifying mix of futuristic warfare and medieval brutality, all happening in the same muddy trench.
And finishing the fight against a heavily armored enemy, like a heretic anointed, it often comes down to this, the Misericordia dagger. After you've somehow managed to bring one of these behemoths down, you literally have to get on top of them, find a tiny chink in their unholy armor, and deliver that final killing blow. It's intimate, it's grisly, and it's an absolutely necessary part of this war.
But you know, it's not all about super soldiers and giant cannons. What about the common yeoman or the heretic legionnaire? What does the average soldier actually carry onto the battlefield?
Believe it or not, despite all the holy steel and infernal fire, the single most common weapon in the Great War is the humble bolt-action rifle. It's reliable, it's effective, and it is the workhorse of the battlefield for both sides. It's a pretty good reminder that at the end of the day, this is still a war fought by legions of infantry.
But beyond that rifle, the arsenals start to diverge pretty dramatically. The faithful use tools of war that are pretty familiar to us: machine guns, sniper rifles, grenades. But the heretic forces, they're equipped with something else entirely. They wield blades of eternally burning fire, living bullets that actually infect their targets and turn them into undead servants, and flamethrowers that spew the actual flames of the lake of fire.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important point. In a war where soldiers are carrying holy icons and cursed trinkets, power is very, very real. But it always, and I mean always, comes at a price, a physical and psychological toll for wielding these ultimate weapons.
And make no mistake, soldiers are willing to pay that price. Why? Because the power you get from these divine and infernal artifacts is undeniable. The records show it. They have turned the tide of so many battles. The temptation to just use them is way too great to ignore.
Just take these two examples from the faithful side. Trench Crusaders often take what are called martyrdom pills. They make the user completely immune to pain and exhaustion, but they extract a brutal toll once the effects wear off. And then you've got a lot of soldiers wearing these iron capirote helmets. Sure, they work as gas masks against chlorine, mustard gas, and worse, but they're also designed to shield the wearer's mind from the sheer, sanity-breaking horror of the creatures of hell.
And if you think that's an extreme cost, the elite forces take it to a completely different level. Let's talk about the observers of the Synod of Strategic Prophecy. Their job on the battlefield requires the most advanced and the most dangerous technology of all. Okay, so to become an observer is to make the ultimate sacrifice. Here's how it goes down. An observer puts on a specially built helmet. This allows them to literally hear the voice of God and perceive the past, present, and future all at once. An incredible advantage in a battle, right? But a living human mind was never meant to hear those words, and the voice of God, it never fades. It creates a divine echo that rings in their ears forever. Sleep is impossible. To even withstand this, they are completely dependent on heavy sedation and mind-altering drugs just to function. Their power is prophecy, but their reality is a living nightmare. So that leaves us with one last question. After 8 centuries of bloodshed, of holy steel and hell-forged blades, of prophecy and damnation, what truly is the ultimate weapon? Is it the sanity-shattering perception of a divine plan, or the soul-scarring strength of infernal power? It really seems like in this war, the greatest weapon is also the greatest burden.